All right. Is it time? And are we there? Let me open up the door for some light. Let there be light. That's not good. Let's see. Oh, okay. It looks like we're on. I've got a comment, so that must mean something good is happening. Can you hear me okay? Great. Super. Welcome back to Coffee Time. I had such a lot of fun yesterday doing it. I hope it was a good time. Hey, good morning, Penny. Good morning. Glad you can hear me. Hey, Lily. Are you playing hooky, Lily? Isn't this your work time? I'm very happy you're here. I've got a lot of exciting things to talk about today. I'm super excited. I'm going to cram everything together. The main thing that I want to talk about, I'm a day off. Congrats. Hey, Brandy, good morning. It's nice to have a day off, huh? Today is a school day for us. I have the kids over at the other house, and first case of COVID this morning. So this is the third morning at school. Of course, my kids are in the living room, but third morning and already a case in the town. I mean, I'm not going to, don't get me started. I'm not going to start. But yeah, working from home. Hey, Amy you're having a homeschool home day. It's tough. It's tough. We're just getting in the groove ourselves, and it's tough. I'm so loving that this is working out because it gives me a real break too. I feel, I'm with the kids a lot, and they're little, 6 and 8. So I feel connected to other people when I can do this, and it's a lot of fun for me. So the overarching theme of the day today, and I'm going to keep an eye on the chat too, this is going to be a silk stockings day. That doesn't sound quite right, does it? But this book, I'm reversed. I can't do flip live. I usually flip things, but this Silk Stockings book about rug hooking, the Grenfell history of rug hooking with silk stockings and making those mats. You're ripping a white wool suit apart. Yes, are you going to dye it as well? The white wool? When is the Lily, you love the latch hooks, right? The new latch hook will come out soon. I will work on it within the next week, I promise. The latch is super fun. It's just, I've been a bit overwhelmed lately because the kids started back. That's a bad excuse. But I will get the next latch hook out soon. It's going to be an autumn scene abstract with lots of autumnal colored trees in the back. I'm going to kit it out the same way with everything there and a hook if you are new to latching and you want to give that a try. It's such a good idea to move from hooking to punch to latch to anything rug making that you enjoy because it's so good for your wrists and arms. If you ever I'm already having those arthritis type problems with movement. It's good to just change your movement and try different things. So the new latch thing will be out soon. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about these silk stockings. I used to have one of these mats that I found on Cape Cod, and I ended up selling it because it wasn't to my specific taste, but I bought it because it was a hooked rug, and I rarely find them. And they're so unique and fun and valuable to somebody else who would appreciate it a lot more than me. But that's going to be the theme of the talk today. I want to tell you I want to tie two things together because something really exciting happened yesterday that fits into reading this Silk Stockings book. And that thing this is the pre-story to the story. Last summer before COVID, when everything was easy and open and felt safe, my mom and I did a lot of day tripping and classes and stuff. And so for Mother's Day, I gave her a class later in the summer at this beautiful inn in Maine that's also like a studio, and it was on German paper cutting. I talk about this a lot because a lot of my designs come from the idea of paper cutting and folding in half and starting there. And when we went to this place, we stayed at the inn. We stayed there, so we were like on the grounds, and they had a beautiful hooked rug. And I was really, really drawn to it. I have pictures of it that I'll post later. I've posted about this before, but last year, and probably in other groups because I hadn't formed our group yet on Facebook. So it was a beautiful floral, but very different floral, very non-conventional floral. And I found out that it was by this artist called Tobey, and that's Molly, Nye, Nye. That's like maiden name. Tobey, Tobey. You should be Googling that or writing that down for right after this. So I got a bit like crazy about this rug and researching Molly Nye Tobey, and I found that she was born like in the late Victorian period, so like the end of the 19th century, and that she was also from Barrington, which is my hometown in Rhode Island. So this is like an extraordinary coincidence. So I took off in the car when we got back a few days later, and I drove to Rhode Island to check out the Historical Society, and they had one of her rugs. And I was able to, it was not on display. I was able to talk the very nice lady into letting me unroll it and look at it. And they had it rolled in reverse anyway. You always want to roll loops out. So that was already quite bad. But anyway, it's safe now. So I got to look at that. And they didn't have a lot of information on her. And I have had this feeling that I would love to write something about her, like a book, because she's from my hometown. I probably rubbed elbows with her at some point at some strawberry festival or at church in the 70s or 80s, right? I didn't know it then. I wasn't rug hooking when I was a kid, unfortunately. But anyway, I wasn't able to find out a lot about her, and I just found a lot of things of hers that had sold at auction. And like months ago, like more than 6 months ago, I found a post about her on some blog, and I wrote to her grandson, who'd posted that he was the grandson and a little bit about her and not much. And I wrote to him and he never wrote back. So I thought the blog was really old, probably nothing coming from it. And then I heard from him yesterday saying, I'm so sorry. I just got on the site. I'm hardly ever on the computer. So I was able to write back to him. I haven't heard back from him yet, but I was able to attack immediately and say, oh my gosh, I have been working so hard. I've been corresponding with a woman who I think is in like her 90s from the Preservation Society in Barrington, because she was a friend of Molly's. But the point is, Molly's work is extraordinary and it should be seen. And I'd love to make those patterns available again. She was an exceptional woman for her time. And I read in one of the few magazine articles that was published about her, she's mentioned occasionally in Rug Hooking magazine, but not often and not enough. She was a super renegade, and she went to Rhode Island School of Design, RISD, which is considered one of the two best, probably with Savannah, art schools in the country. And I read that she was the first female to graduate from a design program, not like from a craft program, but from a design program. And she immediately got into, and I've been corresponding with RISD too to find out more about her life and her classmates to try to research her that way, figure out who her contemporaries were and where she might be at what time, to try to find more info, like newspapers and documents and wherever I can find it. But anyway, she was really all about hooking original designs. And this was so early. We're talking about like before 1910. She had all kinds of crazy parties in her house where she would get that plant. You probably know better than me, but that plant that blooms at night, and invite all the neighbors over and wait for it at like midnight to bloom. And it made this horribly strong smell. I don't know what the smell is, and I can't remember the plant, but I wrote it down. But she was such a whimsical, alive person. And she actually designed her home in Barrington on Rumstick Point, which is like the wealthiest road in town. She designed it. And she always called it, according to her friend, like her illegitimate house, because she designed it with her husband before they were married. This is just also unusual for this time frame. But anyway, I'm so heartened by getting a really solid lead. Oh, what is it called? The cerise plant. Olivia, thank you. And thanks for the message this morning. I'm going to follow up with you on that sticky stuff. But yeah, it's so cool. I mean, you think of people living these just awesome lives. Imagine hanging out with neighbors at midnight in your house and having cocktails, waiting for a plant to open up. And then she would give everybody a little piece of the plant to take home, and would say that the next person, the first person it opened for, would be the next person that would have to have this midnight party. Just fun times. Just somebody I really want to write about. And I want to show you all of the designs of hers I've found. And her grandson found 2 new designs like a month ago that he'd had rolled up. They were childhood designs of like carousel horses, very graphic and stylized, very different, not what you would think from the early 20th century. But anyway, I got going along that vein. And then I got into bed last night and I started reading this book. It's called Silk Stocking Mats. and it's by Paula Laverty, Laverty. And it's about the Grenfell mission. And if you are a brand new person to rug hooking, you might not have heard of Grenfell mats yet. They go by, this is a Canadian style, a Canadian school of hooking. They go by mats and not rugs. So that can be confusing right off the bat. But I started reading this book and it was so riveting. I'm not done. But I paraphrased a lot of what's in the beginning because I want to tie it into something else for you in this episode now. I was super, super moved and excited by this book. It's a gorgeous looking book, and I'll flip through it in a second. But I just wrote some notes down to, if you don't know anything about Grenfell, this is an important chapter in the history of rug hooking. And I think it's super exciting. Dr. Grenfell was like a young student in 1891. I'm looking at my notes because there's a few. And he learned about the really bleak conditions for the people, the fishermen and their families who were living in Labrador. Now, Labrador is like the super raggedy, taggly coastline that stretches like 750 miles between the tip of Newfoundland and the southern tip of Greenland. So this is like, oh, really? You're writing from Newfoundland. Hey, Connie. So this is a story you already know, but this is a story worth telling, hearing, sharing. These people who were living in this community, it was very isolated, very, very bleak is an understatement. And they were living, of course, off the fishing life. I mean, if it was not a good fishing year, they were terribly, terribly in debt, dangerously in debt. In other words, quality of living not great at all. And they tried to supplement it with trapping. Hey, Linda, which wasn't always successful either. So these people had it hard. And this man, Grenfell, heard of their plight and decided to devote his life to helping out these people. Now, he was a medical man, so he had finished a lot of medical work. And this was a medical mission initially until he got there and he saw how horrible and desperate it was for these people and their families. And of course, this is like a British colony at this point, and there's little, if any, help coming financially from the UK. And remember, this is the period in history too that Britain owns like almost a quarter of the world, and it's a bit overwhelming. So he decides to devote his life to helping these people in Labrador. Now, the next big thing that happens in this story is that this woman called Jessie Luther comes on the scene in 1905. I've got to show you a picture of her because she's just like super character. I hope you can see this. I mean, it's not in focus in the book either, but there she is in like her crazy extreme weather clothes. She was 46 when she came here. She had met Grenfell at a sort of party or a gathering in Marblehead, Mass. And she was an early pioneer of crafts. And she was living in Marblehead, but she was from Providence. And this is what I tied the Molly Nye Tobey thing to in my head, was that they would be contemporaries of each other. So Jessie Luther has started this group in Marblehead coming from Providence where she pioneers therapy. Like she has a studio that's actually, it sounds like a sanatorium. And she's teaching people, women who have suffered from nervous conditions, breakdown, collapses, breaks, what they would call breaks from reality that we would now call maybe a nervous breakdown or something worse. But anyway, she would teach them pottery, weaving, woodwork, patients recovering from these nervous conditions, which, as you can imagine at this time, was a lot of women, right? Life was not easy for anybody, but she had a lot. These were all upper class people we're talking about too, right? We're not talking about just the average Joe. She could afford to do this with her life, become like a philanthropist and help people. And Jessie was a highly skilled person in all of the things that she taught. So she meets Grenfell in Marblehead, and he convinces her to travel up to Labrador to become like a teacher and to pioneer this project of helping women do a craft to bring in money to supplement the not very consistent money that the fishermen husbands are making, because that is the lifestyle. There's no opportunity, right? In fact, Grenfell said he'd never seen a situation where there was such a lack of opportunity. So she goes up there at 46. Now I'm 48, so I'm not saying she was an old crone by any means. You saw the picture of her. She makes her way up there on her own in like the 1900s, before 1910. She's taking boats, trains, all kinds of land conveyances. And I mean, it's like a travel nightmare, a connection nightmare. And she actually writes in her journal that all of the mishaps of travel, she found it that they made the whole journey more interesting. She said they made the whole thing more interesting for her to have these constant transportation nightmares. I mean, I'm really going to think about that next time I'm standing on a train platform and the train is canceled or I can't flag a taxi in the middle of a city. I'm going to think about Jessie Luther traveling to Labrador in the early 1900s and finding it whimsical that the transportation connections are just not there by herself as a woman. So anyway, the object of this mission was going to be to teach weaving, right? Because weaving was already a thing there. And this failed immediately because she tried to get so many women involved to help each one of them, but these looms were gigantic and they did not fit inside these tiny fishermen's cottages. So this was already like, it seemed like it was a failure right at the onset. And for some reason, both she and Grenfell managed to miss or to overlook for quite a few months the fact that almost every woman in Labrador had a hooked mat, many hooked mats all over the floor, because it's cold and it's extreme and it's bare. And they are hooking these already and the mats are all over the floor. But somehow they missed this for quite a while. So as soon as they ditched the idea of the giant loom, they thought, wait a minute, these women are already so highly skilled at making these mats, hooked rugs. Maybe they should be doing this instead. And of course, that's exactly what they should have been doing. So they start having this thing immediately called the matting season, which is February and March. Those are going to be the quietest months in terms of work and output for men. And of course, the women are working around the men because they are the breadwinners so far. And everybody is hooking during these months. They were doing it anyway. Now they're doing it officially. Now, Jessie was drawing designs herself and giving them to the women to hook. So they weren't designers at this point. Jessie was doing the design work because she has so much designing history already in Providence and then in Marblehead and setting up her studio/sanatorium. She's already like an artist in her own right. Again, just like Molly and Tobey, these early 20th century women who are designers, right? This is so in the face of men. If there's any men out there, I'm not being a sexist, a reverse sexist. I'm just saying it's so unusual. So, and of course, again, these are upper class women, right? In general, not the women of Labrador, but women who can afford to do art and spend their time that way. So Jessie's drawing up all these designs on old grain and flour bags, sugar sacks. But strangely, if you're thinking potato sacks, not potato sacks. They never used potato sacks because although they had them, they were too coarse. So already we're talking about something very different than what we see at the same time in northern Maine, people using anything they have to make it work. They already are saying their rugs are so fine before Grenfell gets there that they're not going to use a potato sack. They're going to use something a little bit finer to get a better result. And they already know how to do this. So it's a really good start. So they're using scraps and doing hit or miss type designs until Jessie starts designing for them. And Jessie mentions in her journal on January 28th, 1908, the first official gathering to make mats of women. And she says it's a complete failure until she figures out that what she needs to do is serve everybody a cup of tea. This is like the sort of civilized gesture that makes everybody want to stay, want to work, because until she figures out serving tea is like the Rosetta Stone of getting people to work, it's not going well. Even with all of these benefits of them already being skilled at mat making, she starts serving tea. Tons of women start showing up. She starts coming out with all new designs. These are the kinds of designs that she did, Jessie, based on the locality, right? The things you would see in day-to-day life, because this is what hooking is about, right? You hook what you know. So she would design mats that were fish and dogs, like sleigh dogs, seals, walruses, jellyfish, ducks, bears, rabbits, ships, gulls, seagulls, and reindeer. So these you're getting such a sense of it already. I'm sure this is so exciting to start sort of organizing this as an industry. And she's using wool and flannel that she has bought herself, and she's distributing it among the women who are making the mats. It's already getting late. And they're doing all their dyeing in enamel pans on the premises. And they're using natural dyes, right? I'm going to go back to natural dyes because my first coffee time failed as far as you being able to see me talking about natural dyes. But they use spruce twigs to make like a fawn color. They used patent bark to make like a pink brown. Lime made rust. Madder root made different shades of red. And they even used indigo. But Grenfell also was designing the mats at this time, and he was the entrepreneur part of this. So he was arranging exhibits and shows in like American cities like Boston. And he would take tons of orders at these shows for these rugs, showing one example of them, and then all of the colors, swatches of colors that they would use to make them exactly the same way. So as early as 1914, shops in Manhattan were ordering like one of each of these designs. Can you imagine how much of a game changer this was to this community in Labrador? Massive game changer. But all good things have to end. And this doesn't end here. But Grenfell marries a socialite named Anne, who is not a bad person, but she obviously does not get along with Jessie. And she is a big proponent of her husband's designs, but doesn't like Jessie's designs and is very vocal about that. And Anne is going to attempt to standardize the rug making. And Jessie immediately has had it, right? Because this is her baby and someone else, another woman is taking over. So you can only imagine the kind of dynamic that's happening there. So Jessie retires from this, which is sad because she's put years into it at this point. And Anne takes over. And to be fair, Anne is setting up 25 mats a week for women to hook. So she's cutting, she's hemming, she's ripping the strips. She's doing a lot of work. It's not like she's a layabout. And she would give each woman a small painted picture, like watercolor picture of what the mat was supposed to look like with the right colors. This is just so charming, and it is a lot of work. So it's hard to hate her. Not that you should. So the mats are selling for $5 a piece, right, before 1910, and the hookers are each getting $1.50. It's not a lot now, but then it was extraordinary. So as a group, the Grenfell mission is entering craft shows all over the place in the US and in Canada, and they're showing the mats. A woman comes in 1926 called May Presley Smith, and she's known as Presley. And it is she that comes up with the idea of using the silk stockings. You know, as a hooker, wool is heavy, it's expensive, it's hard to come by. It can get holes in it, moths or other things can get into it. The stockings are going to dye beautifully. They're going to hook beautifully. This is really an innovation. And she is another sort of socialite. She's not a lower class person by any means. And she puts out the word, send your old silk stockings to Labrador. Let them run to Labrador. That was like her clever tagline. And she would advise people to cut out the feet and obviously the crotch. We're not sending smelly crotches to Labrador. But she was getting insane amounts of bags and boxes of used stockings that people were selling. And she was able to appeal directly to like the debutante world, the upper class world of silk stockings. They had nothing better to do with their stockings. And of course, it made them feel very good to do this humanitarian push and send them to Labrador. And it's at that point in the 1920s when they start hooking with stockings. And it is so successful. You probably know, you've probably heard of these mats, super successful. It was just what the community needed. And they even started opening little taverns in northern New England and even in Connecticut, where they would have like a little tea room serving food and sell the mats as well. There were quite a few in Vermont. There were some in Connecticut. This book tells you all about it. It's so interesting. Let me just show you a couple of the little things that are going on here. I showed you Jessie, and I want to show you just quickly, if you can see this little design of the dog sled right on the bottom of a bib. Can you imagine? That's a cross stitch. I'm going to show you that because that's going to come up again in a minute. But that was one of their signature designs. This is some of the women receiving stockings. This is dyed stockings. This is bags of stockings arriving for the mission. I mean, how exciting. Isn't it exciting when you do anything and it works? I mean, this really worked. And I just wanted to show you this because I thought this was so cute. This is a picture of their store. I'm going to keep this card in it. A lady manning the store. But you can see they've got like animal skins, but there's a lot of rug hooking and mats on the walls. This must have been such an exciting time for them to see this kind of success. And this is an example of one of their little tea rooms. This is one in Vermont where you would go and have lunch, and there was rugs all over the place. You could order them. You could buy them. You could order them. There was any number of things you could do. You're never going to see this, but they even had a vehicle, and I'm just going to point to it. But on the door, their logo was that little dog sled that's on the bottom of that bib that somebody hooked later. But their little logo was so cute, and they have it stamped on everything. They were so streamlined and amazing. So I'm highly recommending this book for a great read. Besides the history, which I've barely scraped the surface of, there's lots of pictures of these rugs at the end. I mean, come on. This is like so, there's lots about the people. There's lots about the designs, because of course they're using the same designs over and over. Hey, Anita from Ontario. We're talking about Canada. This is like all signature. If you don't know the Grenfell rugs, you should really check this book out. It's super fun. And what I want to tie it to in the 5 minutes I have left is this book by Jean Shepherd. This is the classic Bible on dyeing. And one of the things he talks about in this book, this is called Prepare to Dye, D-Y-E, by Jean Shepherd, G-E-N-E, Shepherd, P-H-E-R-D. He has chapter 15. It is about dyeing nylon. Again, I can't flip these live videos, but the whole chapter is about using dyes on nylon. This classic rug that's been in a few books and in Rug Hooking magazine, all of these flowers are made out of nylon loops from, making pot holders, right? You can get them in cotton or nylon. Cotton ones aren't going to dye that well, but the nylon ones are. All of this, the whole central thing is made from dyeing nylon potholder loops. And he even shows you how to over dye the loops. So for example, I got loops, and I took out the colors I didn't like. I'm not a huge fan of primaries, and these are my neon loops. I'm probably going to over dye my primary ones to make them colors that are more for me, but I can cut these nylon loops for making pot holders and use them to hook. This is the same as hooking with silk stockings, Grenfell style. So you can do that. Now, I even ordered, because I found on eBay, a bag of this brand is called Wool Novelty Company. They're called weaving loops. It doesn't always have the name pot holder in them. Weaving loops. Again, don't do the cotton. They're not going to come out as brilliant. But I found this whole bag of just whites. So I can dye these like crazy times and do a whole rug out of that. And I found this lot on the Rug Hooking buy and sell the other day. I bought the whole bag, a whole bag of silk stockings that have been dyed. Nylon stockings. I shouldn't say silk. They might not be silk. But these are nylon stockings. And I haven't even undone them yet. But they are like crazy pantyhose, dyed pantyhose, crazy beautiful autumn colors. What is the name of the book? The Grenfell book was called Silk Stockings Singular Mats by Paula Laverty. And the other book, the dyeing book, was by Jean Shepherd, and it's called Prepare to Dye, D-Y-E. But I just want to show you these as a handful. You can see how just taking pantyhose, remember the legs, eggs thing? You get all these crazy colors, right? I mean, it's just like brilliant colors. So I'm super excited to unravel all these and start dyeing. And I'm super excited to dye my nylon loops. It's probably not going to happen soon because I'm a little bit backed up. Can you show the full photo page of the cod drying fish on, yes, page 82 and 83, certainly. Let me show that, 82 and 83. Let's see. Here we go. 82. Oh my God, I didn't even get to this part. Okay, it's called Fish on Flake. Susan, that is gorgeous. As a design, it is still contemporary for today. Susan just made that comment. That is so true. Talk about translating daily life. Here's the guys with the fish into art. This is the product. Susan, thank you so much for saying that. I haven't even gotten past like the first 2 chapters of the book yet. And I did not even see that design. That is an amazing contemporary design. So this is what you get in this book. It's filled with ideas. Between this book and this book, If that doesn't get you going with wanting to dye nylon stockings, hey, listen, get your stockings, cut the crotch out, cut the toes off, and get going. I'm going to end this for today because I have a lunch date with my mom and my sister and my daughter. It's ladies day at the Mexican restaurant. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm so passionate and excited about doing stuff with these nylon loops, with these nylon pot holder loops, and with these weaving loops that I'm going to dye. I'll do some videos about this. But I hope you enjoyed watching. I had so many more things to talk about, but we didn't just get there. Luckily, there's more days, right? So have a wonderful afternoon. Take care of yourselves. Be creative. Don't set expectations that are so high that you're bound to fail. And I will, thanks, Olivia. Thanks, Linda. I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place, 11:30, Ribbon Candy Hooking Channel. Have a great afternoon.